Have you ever stopped to think about what a single second is really worth? Not your time, I mean in actual dollars and cents. Well, in the digital world, it turns out 1 second can be worth an absolute fortune. And today, we're going to find out exactly how much.
So let's just start with this number, $2.5 million. Just let that sit there for a second. What on earth could that possibly be tied to?
Well, what if I told you that for an average e-commerce business, that's the real annual cost of just a 1 second delay in your website's load time? Seriously, this isn't a guess, it's a calculation. So let's dig into how this is even possible.
First up, let's really wrap our heads around the direct financial hit. How does a literal blink of an eye translate into such a staggering amount of money?
This is what's known as the 1 second rule. And this isn't some number we just pulled out of thin air. It comes from crunching performance data from over 1,200 different websites. It represents the direct calculated loss in sales, all because of a tiny 1 second delay.
So where does that loss even come from? Well, it all comes down to conversions. For every single second you make someone on a desktop wait, 7.1% of them will just give up and not buy. But check out the mobile users. Man, it is so much worse. We're talking a 9.4% drop. People on their phones just do not have the patience.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, sure, that's for mid-sized businesses. But get this, Amazon, one of the biggest companies on the planet, found that for every 100 milliseconds of delay, that's 1/10 of a second, they lost 1% in sales, a literal blink of an eye. It just proves that these tiny fractions of time have absolutely enormous consequences.
Okay, so the money part is a direct result of human behavior. To really get the why, we have to look at the psychology of waiting, especially in this digital world we all live in.
Let me ask you a question. Just be honest with yourself. When you're on your phone and you click a link, how long are you really willing to stare at a blank screen before you just give up? 1 second? 2? Where's your breaking point? Well, the data here is pretty shocking. After just 1 second, you've already lost 7% of your visitors. But look at the massive jump at 2 seconds. Boom! It's up to 28%. But the real cliff, the point of no return, is 3 seconds. By then, you have lost over half of your potential audience.
Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. 53%. More than 1 out of every 2 people who tried to visit your site on their phone just abandoned ship because it took longer than 3 seconds to load. They don't just get annoyed, they're gone. And you know what's wild? There's actual science behind why we're so impatient. Neurological studies show that after 3 seconds of waiting for a page to load, our bodies literally start producing cortisol. Yep, the stress hormone. A slow website is actually physically stressful. And on top of that, our brains trick us, making the wait feel over a third longer than it actually was. No wonder we bounce.
But here's the thing. It's not just your customers who are judging your site's speed. The algorithms are too. And this brings us to what you could call the Google speed tax. See, Google has this system called Core Web Vitals. The easiest way to think about it is like a mandatory report card for your website's performance. And this isn't a suggestion. These metrics are a direct confirmed factor in how high your site shows up in search results. And these are the grades you're shooting for. First, you've got LCP, which is basically how fast the main stuff on your page shows up. That's got to be under 2.5 seconds. Then there's FID, or how quickly your page responds when someone clicks something. That needs to be less than 100 milliseconds, super fast. And finally, CLS, which measures if your page jumps around while it loads. You want that to be basically 0. If you fail these tests, you pay a price. And here's that price. On average, sites that don't meet these Core Web Vitals drop almost 4 positions in Google's search. Now, that might not sound like a huge deal, but what it really means is a massive 27 to 39% loss in organic traffic. You basically become invisible to a huge chunk of your audience. Okay, so we've established the problem. A slow site costs you customers, and it costs you visibility. So the real question is, what's actually causing these slowdowns? Let's go find the most common culprits. So, the number one speed killer, responsible for 42% of all delays, is unoptimized images. We're just talking about image files that are way too big for the web. After that, you've got things like render blocking resources, which is just code that makes your browser wait, and poor caching, which means people have to re-download everything every time they visit. The biggest problem is often the most simple to fix. And here's the good news. Fixing this is totally achievable. It's a pretty logical process, actually. It starts with just testing your site to get a baseline. Then you find the specific bottlenecks, like those big images. You optimize them. And then, this part's really important. You keep monitoring your performance to make sure you stay fast. So, this all brings us to the final question you really ought to be asking yourself. After seeing all this, it's pretty clear that website speed isn't just some tech detail anymore. It's a core business metric. So, is yours a revenue-generating asset, or is it a silent multi-million-dollar liability?